Hello everyone, Prosperity here. The Burning Legion is raining down upon us, but have no fear. We have lots of new abilities to fight them back with. This guide series is here to help you sort through all the changes to each class and specialization so that you can better understand what's going on. With that said, welcome to the Expert Guide to the Restoration Druid in Legion. Before we get started, go ahead and pause this video and take a quick look at the first two parts of the Resto series, as they lay the foundation for everything I'll be talking about in this video. I'll post links in the description and on screen for you if you haven't watched them already. Now that we're all caught up, let's dive right in. This guide is going to be going over all of the new talents for the Resto Druid in their entirety, all 21 of them. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Once we get through all the talents, I'll give you my general thoughts on the tree as a whole. First, here at level 15, from left to right, we start off with Prosperity. Taking this talent will give you a second charge on your Swift Mend and reduce the cooldown by 5 seconds. This talent has a few synergies that I'll get to later on. Taking Cenarian Ward gives you the ability on a 30-second cooldown. It costs about 2/3 of the mana of Swift Mend and heals for about 1.6 times more. When you cast this on a friendly target, it places a buff on them that lasts for 30 seconds. The next time that target takes damage, they will be healed over 8 seconds. This talent is just about on par with Prosperity in terms of output, but is more mana efficient. Taking Abundance reduces the cast time of Healing Touch and increases the critical strike chance of regrowth by 10% for each rejuvenation you have active. Abundance is the weaker talent this tier, but can be useful if you are AoE healing a lot. Moving down to the second tier at level 30, taking Renewal grants you the spell on a 2-minute cooldown, healing you for 30% of your maximum health when used at no cost to you. This spell can only be cast on yourself and is usable in all shapeshift forms. It's a great source of self-healing if mobility isn't an issue. Taking Displacer Beast gives you the ability on a 30-second cooldown. Activating this ability will teleport you 20 yards in the direction your character is facing and pull you into cat form, also increasing your movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. If you're having major issues with mobility, this talent may be for you. Taking Wild Charge will give you the ability on a 15-second cooldown and has varying effects depending on which shapeshift form you're in. The range on each of these effects is 5 to 25 yards. Here are the effects each combat form has. Caster, fly to your target's location. Bear, charge at an enemy, rooting them for 4 seconds. Cat, leap behind an enemy target, dazing them for 3 seconds. This talent is the most versatile choice of the tier, but should only be considered if you need the added utility with your affinity. The third tier at level 45 is my favorite, the Affinity tier. The choice here will grant you increased effectiveness while in the corresponding shapeshift form and can be used to vastly increase your utility in a fight. The talent you take here will be up to personal preference, or should be aligned with what your group needs. First is Balance Affinity. Taking this talent will increase the effective range of all of your abilities by 5 yards and grant you Moon Conform, Star Surge, and Lunar Strike, giving you the ability to switch to range DPS during times of low incoming damage. Second is Feral Affinity. Taking this talent will increase your movement speed baseline by 15%, also granting you 5 new abilities for cat form: Shred, Rake, Rip, Ferocious Bite, and Swipe. You will also have your energy regeneration rate increased by 35% while in cat form. This is a great alternative to Balance Affinity if your team isn't melee heavy already. Third is Guardian Affinity. Taking this talent will reduce all damage taken by a baseline 10% and will give you 4 new abilities for bear form: Mangle, Thrash, Iron Fur, and Frenzied Regeneration. This talent is great to take if there are fights when a third tank could be used to keep a specific mob or group of adds, while the main tanks handle the other boss mechanics. Let's move down to the fourth tier at level 60. Taking Mighty Bash gives you the instant ability on a 50-second cooldown. Using the spell will stun an enemy target for 5 seconds, and is usable in any shapeshift form. Remember that stunning as much as possible is a good way to reduce incoming damage. Taking Mass Entanglement gives you the instant ability on a 30-second cooldown. Casting this spell on a target will root them in place for 20 seconds and will spread to additional targets within about 10 yards. This is also usable in all shapeshift forms, but you should note that damage on an affected target has a chance to cancel the effect. Taking Typhoon gives you the instant ability on a 30-second cooldown. When activated, you send out a wave in a 15-yard cone in front of you, knocking all enemies within it back and dazing them for 6 seconds. The spell is also usable in all shapeshift forms and is a solid all-purpose positioning talent. Looking at the 5th tier at level 75, we have Soul of the Forest, which gives you a new effect when you cast Swift Mend. The buff you gain after casting Swiftwind with this talent will increase the healing of your next regrowth or rejuvenation by 200%, or your next wild growth by 75%. This talent is a well-rounded choice and is made even better if you've taken the Prosperity talent in the first tier. Taking Incarnation Tree of Life will grant you the spell on a 3-minute cooldown. Using this spell will increase your healing done by 15%, armor by 120%, and protect you from polymorph effects. The effect lasts for 30 seconds and you can move in and out of the form for the entire duration as you please, meaning Displacer Beast and Dash will not cancel the effect. While in the Tree of Life form, your Entangling Roots and Regrowth are instant cast. Rejuvenation's healing is increased by 50% and mana cost decreased by 30%, and Wild Growth affects 2 additional targets. The talent can get really mana intensive, so it's a good idea to couple this cooldown with an Innervation to help curb the increased mana consumption. Taking Cultivation will cause your Rejuvenation to apply a second heal over time effect to a target if it heals them when they're below 60% health. This additional heal over time lasts for 6 seconds and heals for a little less than half of the full healing that Rejuvenation itself would provide. While this talent has a great amount of potential in some situations, it's the weaker of the tier since it requires a low health threshold to be useful. Down to the 6th tier at level 90, taking Spring Blossoms will cause a small amount of additional healing over 6 seconds on each target healed by your efflorescence. This talent is extremely strong in fights that have persistent damage effects, but not so much for healing in short burst windows. Taking Inner Peace simply reduces the cooldown of your Tranquility spell by 1 minute. Where Spring Blossom fails, Inner Peace triumphs, as taking this talent will allow you to deal with periods of heavy incoming raid damage much more often. Taking Germination is an interesting choice that allows you to have up to 2 rejuvenations on a target at the same time. This talent is the weaker of the tier, as there's a very real probability of vastly overhealing in an encounter with this talent taken. This will likely shine in small group content, as the second rejuvenation counts as its own heal over time effect, adding to your mastery's effectiveness. Let's take a look at the final tier at level 100. Taking Moment of Clarity causes your Omen of Clarity to now affect the next 3 regrowths you cast. This talent does not increase your healing effectiveness in any real way, but could be useful if you're having major mana issues early on. Taking Stonebark will reduce the cooldown of Ironbark by 30 seconds, putting it on par with Barkskin. It also increases your heal over time effects on the target by 20% when it's active. This talent is a great choice for a tank healing role, but doesn't have much use elsewhere. Taking Flourish gives you the ability on a 1-minute cooldown. Activating this spell will extend the duration of all heal over time effects on all friendly targets within 60 yards by 6 seconds. This spell is an absolutely insane raid healing tool, especially when used with the Spring Blossoms effect and Wild Growth rolling across your group. In all likelihood, this will be the default talent of this tier. Now that we're through all the talents, it's time for my thoughts on the tree as a whole. The resto talents are incredibly utilitarian, not really giving you much in the razzle-dazzle department. Instead, it gives you ample opportunity to broaden your toolkit, even going so far as to allow you to spread into multiple healing roles. A likely default build for beginner healers will be as follows: Cenarian Ward, Renewal, Balance Affinity, Typhoon, Soul of the Forest, Spring Blossoms, and Flourish. This build is not optimized by any means, but should be enough to help you learn the ropes and get a firm grasp of the toolkit. That's all I have for the expert guide to the Restoration Druid and Legion, but not for the end of the series. The 3 videos I've made for Resto should serve as a solid basis to get into the spec with. Subscribe to keep an eye out for more class guides and some comprehensive guides after Legion comes out. Of course, any questions you have about the Druid or anything Legion related, feel free to ask me in the comments below or on Twitter @TheLoranzis. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have fun.